The town of Barnstable has some important decisions to make regarding water quality. For over a decade, the town has been taking steps to limit development that would introduce nitrogen into estuaries. But now some say it's time to ease up on regulations to pursue housing and economic development.
The mission of our organization is to protect Barnstable's quality of life and unique character and engage our citizens and enact policies that respond to and anticipate the needs of our community through sound financial management, open communications, engaging our public, and with equitable balance of resource allocations to improve quality of life for our residents, businesses, and visitors. So, very complex community. Not many other communities in the state, maybe even across the country, have this complex of a system to manage. Clearly the public is well aware that without water, whether it's groundwater, drinking water, our ponds, lakes, bays, sounds, we aren't Cape Cod. We lose that unique quality of life that we have. We also have to manage economic growth, and we have to address our housing challenges. Those are priorities as well.
Barnstable's interim saltwater estuary protection regulation is designed to control the flow of nitrogen by banning the construction of septic systems in an area that takes up nearly half of town. A proposal to lift those regulations to allow for further development is on the table, a plan that is concerning some conservationists.
Well, more development, affects the whole community, and so really we are living today with the legacy of the development that we did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, because once the nutrients get in the groundwater, it gradually moves into the coast, gradually moves into the salt water, and that can take years. If it's further inland, it can take 10 or 20 years. So everything we've done from those previous years is impacting us now. And so the so-called 208 plan, which the EPA mandated for Cape Cod, really says that we can't add any more nitrogen to what we already have. And so that's really the main issue that we're looking at in this particular situation is we need to reduce what we already have and not add to it. The town is planning on making those efforts, but we haven't started to actually do it yet. And so that's really the issue here is, aren't we putting the cart before the horse?
Although interim regulations have been in place for a decade, Chris Killian, Vice President of Strategic Litigation for the Conservation Law Foundation, says the town must follow through on its commitment to adopt, fund, and implement its comprehensive wastewater management plan before any modification or repeal of the interim ordinance can be considered. Whatever the town decides, the action will have a ripple effect. The town of Mashpee says the amendment will impact Pompanesett Bay, a regional resource which it shares with Barnstable and Sandwich.
Our concern as the town of Mashpee, as evidenced by the letter our chairman, Carol Sherman, sent to the Barnstable Board of Health, is that Pompanesett Bay is already oversaturated with nitrogen, the majority of which comes from Mashpee, but a substantial portion comes from the town of Barnstable. The amount that comes from Barnstable is limited now as a result of the existing limitations that they have. Our concern is that if those limitations are lifted as proposed, that will allow increased development in the Pompanesett watershed that's in the town of Barnstable, and that will increase the amount of nitrogen that shows up in the bay and will increase our collective cost of dealing with water quality improvements as a result of taking out the increased nitrogen. We don't object to them changing their local bylaws or regulations. What we do suggest strongly is that the town complete its planning process, lay out a vision for how they're going to manage their share of the load of nitrogen in Pompanesett Bay, submit that to the town council for approval, submit it to the state for approval under their process, get a 208 consistency review from the Cape Cod Commission, and then once they have a plan in place, begin to implement it, then they can change their regs.
Barnstable is expected to complete its comprehensive nitrogen management plan this spring. Gottlieb suggests no changes until that process is complete.
Having a plan in place that identifies the strategies you're going to use to mitigate your nitrogen allows for towns to make targeted investments in where they want to see additional development. Having a plan for nitrogen management doesn't preclude new housing development or redevelopment. It actually enables it.
Everything here on Cape Cod is connected to the water, whether it's the reason that all of our tourists come or whether it's the reason that our residents that live here.
The Board of Health is scheduled to continue discussion on the regulation change on January 22nd. The meeting is open to the public. For Cape Media News, I'm Gabrielle Rawson.